Hello guys, and welcome back to the How to Animate YouTube channel. And in today's video we're going to be starting a brand new series, and it's going to be on how to create a game in Unreal. So I wouldn't really call this a tutorial series as such. I'm still quite new to Unreal and I will be struggling through some of these things, but it's more of a development blog. So the demo you're looking at the moment was created in Unity quite a while back. I kind of exhausted my C# knowledge and wasn't able to do a lot of the advanced things I wanted to do, but I've been learning a lot about blueprints lately and feel I can take this game further in Unreal. So we're basically going to rebuild all the mechanics, all the state machine and everything, and get it back up to this level and then progress. So really looking forward to this series. I wanted to do this for ages, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, so when you first open up Unreal, you'll have these tabs up the top: current projects and new projects. So it's going to be a brand new project, and you see Unreal already sets up a bunch of presets for the type of game that you want to make. These are really handy. So we're looking at side scroller, not 2D side scroller. This is for more sprite based stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and load that in. This is where all your files will go associated to this project, and you can actually name it here. So we're going to call it Lipseed. Okay, and go to create project. Okay, so once you open up side scroller example map, this is what you get. We're going to go ahead and delete some of this stuff. Some of this is just clutter. Might as well keep the blocks in because they'll be good for testing. I don't think the character will ever jump that high, so I don't think we need these top ones here. Okay, so if we hit play now, you're able to run about and jump. So we're going to use this functionality that's already built in. That's what I like about Unreal. It kind of assumes that your character is going to be doing all this stuff from the get-go, so you don't have to code it. So this is great. So what we're going to do first of all is have a look at getting our character in and replace this current one that we've got here. So in this folder here, I've basically taken all the FBXs that I had from the Unity game. The only one we're really interested in at the moment is the skeleton master here. This will be the skeletal mesh that we're going to use. We are going to create a brand new folder here, and I'm going to call it characters. Okay, I'm going to open this up, create a new folder in this, call it Freya, because that's the name of my main character in this. Okay, I'm going to create another new folder, call it animations, and another new folder, and call it meshes. Great, so now we've got those created. I'm going to double click on meshes, and I'm going to drag the skeleton master in. So it's going to come up, and it's basically saying, okay, is this a skeletal mesh? Which it is. You've got that ticked, importing the mesh with it. This is both the bones and the skeleton. Okay, so this all looks good. So if we go to import now, okay, and we have our character. So it brings in the skeleton, it creates a physics asset, and if we double click on this, we can actually have a look at the character. So up the top here you've got these tabs, so you can have a look at the skeleton. Okay, so this is the skeletal hierarchy here. Okay, so the texture's just loaded in actually. It looked it looks very bad. It looked a lot better in Unity because it was kind of based off transparency and stuff, so I have to have another look at that in Unreal later on, but it'll do for now. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is import all of the animations. So I'm going to select everything apart from the master skeleton and just drag them into the animation folder. It's going to bring up another window, and it's going to ask which skeleton we would want to use. So we're going to point it to Freya. Okay, all this looks good. Okay, so if we hit import now. Great, so now we've got all our animations in the game. So if we open these up and have a look, you see they've all come through. These were just very rough first pass animations that I did ages ago, so all of this is going to have to be reworked, I would imagine, but they're all there and working. Okay, so next we're going to have a look at repointing this player character to point to our new character. The animations won't be set up yet, so it'll be T-posing, but that's okay. So if we select him and then go up to edit over here, it will bring up his character blueprint. If we go to viewport, okay, and basically what this is the character has its own blueprint, and everything associated with a character is in here. So we've got a capsule here, and this is what basically drives collision and physics of the character. Okay, the mesh is obviously the geometry of the character. The spring arm attaches the camera to the character. Okay, so there's some options on the camera here, and there's also options on the spring arm. This controls things like collision with the world and the amount of pitch and yaw to use, how much it drags behind the character, and so on and so forth. Okay, but for now we're just concerned with the mesh here. So if we click on mesh and go over here, you see it's pointing to a skeletal mesh, which is the Unreal Mannequin. So we can actually just swap this out for Freya, like so. Now she's going to be a different size to him, but that's fine, we can scale her up. So we want to make sure she's in the capsule, like so. Okay, this is where the animation blueprint is pointing. At the moment she doesn't actually have a animation blueprint, so she's going to be T-posing, but we're going to set that up in a second. Great, so if you go to compile and save, and we go back to the game, you see it's all still working, she just doesn't have any animations. Okay, so this is good. Right, animation blueprints. Right, we are going to create her animation blueprint now. So I'm going to put it in here, I think, so in her folder. I'm going to create a new folder called blueprints. Doesn't really matter where you put these, because you're going to be pointing to here anyway, so I'm going to right click and go up to animation blueprint. Now it's going to ask you what this is, so you've got a list of things here. I generally use an anim instance, and make sure you actually select your skeleton that this is associated with, and click OK, and it will create you an animation blueprint. Okay, so in the animation blueprint you've got the event graph and the anim graph. So we are going to have a look at the anim graph for now. So the final animation pose is basically the final animation that comes off this blueprint here. So first thing we're going to do is create a blend space between the idle, walk and run. Okay, so we are going to go back out of here, go back into animations and right click, go up to animation and create a 1D blend space. Okay, double click this and it will bring up a new window. So if we go over to Asset Browser, you'll see that all her associated animations are in here already. So we can just go ahead and drag on idle. Okay, and then we have got a walk, which is going to go in the middle, and then run. I've also got a sprint, but I'm going to make the sprint on a button, so it's just going to be a blend of these three at the moment. So if we drag this little green pin across, you see that the animation changes. So we actually need to tell Unreal what's the condition of this change, and it's going to be the speed of the character, which is based on the input. So it's quite important at this point to change the name here to speed with a capital. Okay, and we'll probably up this to about 220, I'd say, as well. Number of grids is okay. Probably increase this a little bit. This is like the blending, so a little bit of blending on that. Okay, so if we save that and go back to the blueprint. Now go to the anim graph. When we start setting up the state machine, it's going to be based on conditions, so it's going to be like speed and all that stuff. At the moment this character doesn't have any of that set up. Okay, so we're actually going to need to do that in this blueprint here. So what we're going to do, okay, so the first thing we need to do is to put it is valid. I think what this does is checks if it's the player or not. So you go like that, and then you plug that into there. I'm not entirely sure why, but that's the way I've always been shown how to do it. We're going to set the speed first of all. So what we do is drag off this and go to get velocity. Okay, and drag off this again and vector length. Great, and we actually need to create a variable for speed, so we're going to put it in here. call it speed with a capital, and we're going to change this over to a float value. Okay, and then if you drag this onto here, and you'll need set speed, like so, and then place that into that. Great, so that will give us the speed variable, so depending on how fast the player's moving, the variable speed will be updated, and then we can actually grab this value here, and depending on how fast the character's going, we can play a different animation. Great, so there's one more thing we need to do, and that's going to be used for the jump. So we're going to find out if the player is in the air or not. So we're actually going to set up another variable. This is a on-off, like Boolean type. So we're going to call this is in air with a question mark. Okay, so this is going to be a yes or a no. It's a Boolean, it's not a float. Okay, and we're going to drag off this again and go to get movement component and drag off it again and go to is falling. Okay, and you see we've got a red one here, which is the Boolean, so we can actually plug that straight in. So if we drag off this and go to set is in air, that will actually connect up nicely with that. Cool, and that's looking pretty good. So there's only one thing we're missing here, and that's this path here, the execute path. Okay, so this path needs to come down to here, and then it needs to come down to here. So that should all work now. Great, and I think that's all we need. So we've got in air and speed, so that's enough to get us going. So if we go to compile, and we'll save it as well. Go to anim graph now, we see we still have these variables here, so we can actually build the state machine based off these two variables. Great, so now we're ready to build our first state machine. So just give you a quick explanation of what's going on here. If we was to plug any animation into this, say the idle, drag that along and plug it in, and to go to compile, it would load in. So whatever's at the end here is what the final animation is. Now we could build all the animation here, but it's generally best to build state machines depending on what the character's doing. So we're going to drag off this and go to new, add new state machine. Okay, that creates this, and we can rename this loco. If we double click this, it opens a new thing, so this is the entry point. So what we're going to do first of all is use our idle walk run blend space that we created earlier. Just drag it in like so. If we then drag this to this and hit compile, you see she starts idling. So we actually need to tell this, what condition is for the animation to change. So if we double click this, you see we've got speed loaded in already, but we actually need to plug our variable that we created in the event graph in as well. So we're going to drag this on here, and we're going to get speed and plug that into that. And if we hit compile, that should work now. So if we go back to our game, hopefully we should see her do absolutely nothing at all. Oh dear. Why is it not working? And I know exactly why. It's because we need to go back to her character and actually set the animation blueprint to her. So let's find her blueprint. There we go. And we go to the viewport again and go to mesh inherited. You see here that the animation blueprint is empty. So we want to make sure this is on use animation blueprint, and we want to find her blueprint. Just like that. You see our animation's updated there, so that's all worked. Compile and save. If we go back to the game now, here we go. And we have the animations working. So at the moment I'm just using the keyboard to turn her. If I use the gamepad I've got, you see if I push slowly forward, then we get a walk, and if I push all the way across, we get a run, which is brilliant. But what I'd like to do before bringing this video to an end is to set up the sprint. So the way I'm going to do that is, if you're moving and then you hold down another button, then she plays her sprint animation, and we also want to increase her speed during this as well. So it's a little bit tricky. We have to use something called casting. So casting is still something that confuses me quite a bit, but I'll do my best to explain it to you. So to set this up, we are going to open up her character. So this is the character blueprint. Now, because this is in the character blueprint, we have to find a way to actually pass that along to the animation blueprint as well. So I'll show you how to do that in a minute. There's a couple of ways we could do this. We could, for example, if we wanted it on the left shift button, we could just type left shift in here. Okay, and there it is. And when pressed, we could set up the variable for that, which would be a Boolean, yes or no. We could also, if you go up to Edit and Project Settings, have a look at Input. Okay, so up here we've got Action Mapping and Axis Mapping. So the things we just saw in that character blueprint, we're basically getting it from here. So if we expand these a bit more, you'll see that these are all the inputs that have already been set up, and you can add your own inputs to this as well. So I think we should go ahead and do that now. So we're going to add a sprint one here. So click on that, and we could call this great, and then we can select which button we would like to use. So let's have a look at what we got here. The face buttons would be like on, say, a Xbox controller. So bottom would be A, right would be B, for example. So for now, I think let's just put it on the B button for now. Great, so this saves automatically, you don't need to do anything here, you can just close this straight away. So if we go back to here now, right click and right sprint, there we go, there's the sprint button. Okay, so what we're going to do is have a look at character movement here. Now if you wanted to change anything about your character and the way it moves, this is where you would do it. So you've got things like gravity, acceleration, all that stuff, the speed when they're walking, all sorts of stuff you can go in here and tweak. So this is what's great about Unreal. All this is already set up and all you have to do is tweak it. So we're going to be looking for something called max walk speed. Okay, so if we drag off pressed and type set max walk, as you can see nothing comes up. If that ever happens to you, then try clicking off context sensitive, and here we go. So that is actually listed in here. Okay, so we're actually going to change it when the button is pressed. So we can increase this. I would imagine it's going to be quite high because this is a rather small character, so let's say 1500 for this. Okay, and we need to create a variable here as well. Okay, we're going to call this is sprinting ? Okay, if we drag this in here and say set is sprinting and connect this up like so, and we want to make sure this is ticked. Great, so if button is pushed, we set max walk speed to this, and is sprinting is now its own variable here. So we need to fill in this target as well because it won't know what the hell we're talking about. So we need to actually drag this into here and plug it in here, like so. Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate this here. So I'm going to do CV. Okay, and this is going to be, say, 900. I think that's what the original was. So if it's released, then it'll go back to this speed. So I'm going to plug that into there as well. Okay, and we need to actually duplicate this as well and tick that off and connect that up. And I believe that is all we need. So I'm going to go up to compile and save. Okay, and then we're going to go back to the animation blueprint. Okay, so we're back in the animation blueprint. So even though we just edited the character blueprint, you see this variable is sprinting isn't here. So we actually need to get access to that. So we're going to use casting. Okay, so the way we get these two blueprints to talk to each other is casting. So I'm going to drag off this here. So you see up here our character blueprint is called side scroller character. So if you say cast to capital S side, there we go, and click on that. So now we are talking to the other blueprint. Okay, so within that blueprint is something called is sprinting. So we're going to get is sprinting. Okay, we're going to come off this and do a branch, which is basically a true or false. There we go, flow control branch. So the condition will plug into here, and then we can actually create a new variable. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we're going to call this is sprinting as well. Drag it on, set is sprinting, so true, tick. I'm going to copy and paste this, if it's false, and tick off. Great, so now we've got these two blueprints talking to each other. We go to compile, save, and when we go back across here, you see we still have is sprinting here. Okay, so let's go back up one, and from here we're going to actually branch off and use the sprint like so. Okay, we're going to drag a line across. You see we get this little thing here, so this is a condition. If we open this up and then put in is sprinting, so get is sprinting, and plug it into this, compile, save. Okay, so let's see if that actually worked out. Okay, that is not playing the animation. I think there's a speed change, but the animation isn't playing, so something isn't quite working. So let's have a look, see if we can work out what it is. Okay, I've just seen what it is. You see we need to connect this executable line all the way through. So this actually needs to plug in over here. We go to compile, save. And I also noticed that I didn't do a return back to the idle. You see we've only got it going one way, so it's sprinting. So we need to do one going back this way as well, and set the condition. So if we drag is sprinting on here, and we want to do a not boolean, and connect that up, compile, save. So if we hit play now, then we get him sprinting. Brilliant. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, something a bit different. I'm nowhere near an expert in Unreal. I'm kind of struggling through this, so if there is any of you out there that know Unreal quite well and wouldn't mind helping me out with this, I'd be more than grateful. So yeah, I will see you in the next video, and we will be having a look at the jump. The jump animations do need quite a bit of work. So we're going to go back into Maya and have a look at those, and it also gives me an opportunity to show you how to export animations out of Maya as well. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.